guess Grundy County Sheriff's Office, Heath Gunter, the sheriff
Grundy County, where's that?
My Tennessee geography is not great. It's Altamont, Tennessee is the address on this press release that my podcaster just sent me. But my producer just sent me, but says the sheriff apparently heard me talking with Sean Ryan on his podcast about how easy it was for me to buy THC Delta 9 in Tennessee, and went around and did THC checks on all the smoke shops and head shops. During this investigation, 5 of the 13 stores were found to be out of compliance with state regulations.
Oh, wow.
Random products were purchased and submitted for testing. The testing revealed that some products labeled as containing 0.3% THC or less did not accurately reflect their content, which of course is the hemp loophole. That's what you have to test at less than 0.3% THC Delta 9 in order to be considered hemp. And they're very obviously importing marijuana from other states. And when I was in Nashville, like on my way to Sean's studio, I stopped at the first head shop I found on Google Maps and walked in, and they've just got jars of pot up on the wall, and they're not even trying to hide it. It's like Michigan Gold and Georgia Green. They're saying this weed has come from out of state. And if it's THC Delta 9 with content higher than, minus 0.3%, it's illegal. It's cannabis.
Yeah.
And everyone's just pretending anyways. No one actually thinks that it's hemp. No one selling it, growing it, or smoking it thinks it's hemp. Everyone knows it's cannabis, but they all just pretend because either making money or getting high.
It's easier to pretend,
Yeah, it's much easier to pretend.
We're going to get into all the nitty gritty today. You and I have been talking for a couple hours since you got here off camera. Like some of the you're uncovering is insane. But the main theme is exactly what you were telling me out there. It's perfect. Like something like this comes in, you legalize it, and then it's just there's no setup for it. Like you have it completely out of control. There's loopholes that everyone can get around, and because law enforcement is now not putting it at the top of their priority because, the people have spoken, it's legal. That means that pretty much anything that has to do under that category, be it hemp, be it marijuana, anything bad that then happens as an offshoot of that is not even looked at.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the unintended consequences of bad policymaking. You can try to predict what you think is going to happen when you legalize a drug and try to create a regulatory framework for this massive industry. But you're going to be wrong. There's going to be things you don't know about. And the other thing I've discovered is that there's going to be things that people on the inside of that industry know about, money-making opportunities that aren't discussed with the regulators. Yeah. And so when the door is open, they come waltzing through and they're ready to sell, hemp oil converted into THC Delta 9, which just started, I think earlier this week. Target launched a pilot program in Minneapolis. They're going to be selling hemp drinks, but it's THC Delta 9. It's the same exact molecule that comes from, the pot we smoked in high school and college. Like it's indigo.
Is it age restricted?
18, I think. Whatever their local their state rules are, maybe it's 21, but it's 5% THC. It's the same exact thing that you're going to get at a cannabis dispensary, but because it's derived from hemp, it's treated differently from a regulatory perspective than if it were to come from cannabis sativa or cannabis indica. So I mean, it's a fascinating case study in how the market responds to changes in the law, and you also have this weird situation where there's a group of people who benefit from the status quo, the way things are right now, with some states legal, some states illegal, and then this weird hemp loophole. There's some groups, including the Chinese organized crime, who are benefiting from this patchwork of illegality because you can make an awful lot of money on flexible principles. If you're willing to grow marijuana illegally and bring it from Maine to New York or New Jersey, you're gonna make some money. Maybe 4 or 5 times the price. But there's a lot more than just the Chinese cartels doing that, for sure. But I think that the Chinese are just a little bit better at it. And they also have free labor. Free labor? Free labor really helps with your margins, yeah.
Can you explain the free labor?
Slavery. Indentured slaves.
Oh, yeah. That's nice.
Yeah, generally their people aren't compensated at an hourly wage for their work. Huh. They're
chained to the walls.
Well, that's it. And an interesting thing is the human trafficking is kind of a spectrum. Like you have on the one hand, the chattel slavery, you're chained to the wall. And then on the other hand, you're free, whatever, you can leave whenever you want. And a lot of the worker exploitation we see is kind of in the middle. You know, there's a case on a Navajo reservation in New Mexico where some Chinese nationals were promised jobs cutting flowers, arranging flowers, and they came over the border, were driven to the reservation and had their phones and passports taken, whatever they had on them, taken away from them. And they were effectively held prisoner on the Navajo reservation. Somehow they managed to get away. And this is actually the subject of a lawsuit right now. There's a human rights attorney representing the Chinese nationals who were effectively enslaved at this cannabis farm on Native American reservation land.
Yeah, there it is. Dave's got it. Chinese dreams on Native American land until cannabis boom and bust. BBC. Okay, please continue, Steve.
Yeah, but I guess what we see in Maine is maybe more toward the middle of the spectrum, where you're not chained to the wall. You're not on an Indian reservation. Maybe you've got a phone or access to internet, but you're at this house in rural Maine in a town of 500 people. You're an hour and a half away from the nearest shopping location. You don't have a car. You don't speak the language. And your food deliveries are coming from the same people who are picking up the marijuana that you're supposed to be growing. And your passport's locked in a safe with your snakehead down in Massachusetts. And he's not going to give it back to you until you've worked off your debt, because he's the one who arranged for you to be smuggled over the Mexican border and flown to Boston and driven up to a marijuana house in Maine. And who knows whether you ever actually work off that debt. But that's the situation that we find with a lot of the people who've been arrested at these sites, a lot of people that I've encountered and tried to interview at these sites, where I initially thought that they were all somehow benefiting from the conspiracy or were, profiting from what they were doing. For the most part, now I understand that they're really victims of Chinese organized crime, and that they might have wanted to be in America, or they might have initially made some free choices to the extent that they can to bring them to this situation. They're victims of human trafficking. They've been smuggled here under false pretenses. They've been lied to. They've been manipulated, and they've been brought to Maine to grow cannabis for a criminal network that is, the guys that were arrested in Massachusetts are driving around in Porsches with hidden compartments that have $250,000 in it. Mm. They've got Rolex bracelets and Cartier bracelets, and there's even
back of slave labor.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're very aware of what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
And how they're exploiting America's culture and America's sentimentality and I guess almost like our liberal culture, and like not wanting to be racist and wanting to approve of everybody. They have a way of using that to camouflage and not get caught and protect themselves. But I was just thinking of the funny example from Massachusetts I don't know if we can look this up, but in the indictment that came down, when they busted these guys, there was one who was actually wearing a shirt that had a picture of someone ironing money. It was his money laundering T-shirt.
Come on.
It was just like the lead
like
money launderer
on the grave.
the lead money launderer of the Chinese organized crime outfit arrested in Massachusetts. It was Leah Foley, the U.S. attorney for the District of Massachusetts, handed down this indictment in July. I think I have the picture at the Robinson Report if you go there. But
did your reporting facilitate this? Kind of thing?
In the indictment, one of the first items listed in there is that these guys were sending my report around on WeChat. So I think that who knows what the investigators were reading when they started out looking into these guys, but the law enforcement, the Mass GOP have credited my reporting with it, and it was listed in the indictment. I think we were the first ones really to start digging deeply into it as a coordinated regional transnational issue, rather than just like, oh, hey, these guys got busted growing marijuana and they all happen to be Chinese and don't speak English. Well, I guess that's an isolated random incident. Don't read too much into that.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
But there's not a lot of investigative reporting happening these days.
It's really sad that things like this can be pressured to stay below the surface when we exist in a world where information is so ubiquitous. Everyone's got one of those right there. They can talk about this. But like you were saying, people are like afraid to ask a question because they're like, oh, what if I'm racist or something? Because it happens to be a bunch of Chinese people living there. But like this is also, we're talking about Maine, where you're from, and where you're covering this, and obviously it's a big deal. This is different levels of this are happening in basically all 50 states at this
everywhere.
point, right? Because China, we've had other guys in here reporting on this. China effectively has a manual system where they send Chinese nationals on this whole circuitous route to get through the southern border and then go into America, and you never see them again. And they end up either in indentured servitude or doing the indentured servituding upon other people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they get in these rackets.
The marijuana is the best case example. There's
the best
more
case.
Yeah. There's more nefarious things that military age males could be doing rather than guarding marijuana houses.
Yes.
And who knows what role the cash that they generate from the marijuana is playing in other malign activities. With that kind of cash, you could facilitate a lot of wrongdoing. But I think that we've seen in Maine really the end result of the migration patterns over the Mexican border. You're just talking about the guy who, the manuals they put online or they hand out showing them how to get into Maine. And we've seen a couple of examples. The District of Massachusetts indictment said specifically they were indicted for human trafficking. They were people who were smuggled from mainland China into Mexico, across the Mexican border. They bought them plane tickets into Logan International Airport and then drove them to marijuana houses in Massachusetts and in Maine. And so there it is. Like, that's the supply chain. Like, do we think that this is the only incidence of that happening? No. This is the model. This is what they're doing. And in that instance, they did steal their passports and put them in a safe, and they were indentured servants. But we've also seen, there was a case, 555 Belfast Road, Freedom, Maine is the house. Beautiful house, a little trout pond out back.
Freedom, Maine.
Freedom, Maine, yeah.
What a name.
Yeah. Well, there were some slaves there in Freedom, Maine.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So this was a house where there was a marijuana growing operation that was raided in, I think, early 2024. And a few months later, some people had come back there and were living there. And one morning, there's an emergency call that goes out because of carbon monoxide poisoning or propane poisoning. And there are 5 Chinese nationals who are hospitalized, asphyxiated or asphyxiating. 2 of them died. And the 2 survivors would later tell investigators that they were illegal aliens. They came in illegally from Mexico. They spoke fluent Mandarin and fluent Spanish, but no English. And after that, they wouldn't really talk. Both of them had New York driver's licenses. And this was under Biden. So they were released. Released. And no one ever came to claim the bodies of the 2 Chinese men who died.
This is the one you were telling me off air too. And it's interesting because you said they were in their 30s.
Yeah.
So this would have been the era, they would have been from the era of like the one child policy in China. So effectively this could probably be someone's only kid, ended their line.
Yeah. And they die in a flop house in Freedom, Maine. And no one comes to claim their bodies. And no one in the media cared. I'm the only one who's written about it. I went and got the the police records about it. I have no idea. I've asked myself this question a lot. Part of me thinks it's because we're like a startup digital media outlet, and we're right of center. We're the conservative outlet in the state of Maine. So if we start reporting on something, like, is it too edgy, or is it like the conservative news ghetto? There's a phenomenon sometimes where if Fox starts talking about something, or if Breitbart breaks a story, well, the CNNs and the Washington Posts, they're not going to talk about it. It becomes the conservative news ghetto, weird. Right? I think that might be a little bit of what started out, but now they're in this position where they're so far behind on the story. We've seen some attempts that the mainstream press in, I guess, Maine, the establishment media in Maine has tried to make covering the world of Chinese organized crime. And it's just kind of funny for me to read, because I'm like, oh, okay, so you don't know anything.
Yeah.
So I don't blame them now at this point for not picking up on some of the stuff. But you think about, like, if a refugee from the Congo died in some accident in Portland, there would be like rallies and candlelight vigils, and everybody would be coming out to say what a travesty this is. We need to pay attention to this. But for some reason, that kind of, I guess, like left-wing nonprofit world of sympathy generating and, making political hay out of sympathy. It just doesn't exist for the Chinese, not in Maine at least, that I've seen. No one really cares that they're dying, that they're being abused. I mean, we had this, as I'm reporting on indentured slavery at Chinese cannabis houses.
Indentured slavery, and you're using those words too.
I mean, if I've smuggled you into the country and I've
Yep.
taken your passport and I've got it locked up in a safe,
That's the definition.
you can't get away.
Yep.
Like it's indentured servitude.
That is
to me.
absolutely what it is.
But as we're reporting on this, the legislature is debating an agricultural minimum wage for farm workers. And this is the same legislature that is adamantly ignoring the Chinese organized crime problem, doesn't want to support any legislation that might strengthen the law enforcement's ability to deal with the problem, doesn't want to do any kind of changes to the cannabis program so that this is harder for them to do, harder for them to profit from, totally ignoring actual slavery happening. And they want to like get the agricultural minimum wage up a little bit. It's weird. There's a weird cognitive dissonance happening with people,
Huge.
Pretending like this isn't a problem.
It's also the dark side of the immigration debate is that if you just looked at it at the highest level, on the one hand, you have the people who are hardliners, we got to stop this problem or whatever. Just leave them as that broadly for a second. And then on the other side, you have people going, no, we don't have a problem. We're a nation of immigrants, all this stuff, which we are. But the reality is the argument, like the people who may be hardcore, like let's fix the border, who aren't like racist and stuff like that, which there are plenty of people who are not racist that are thinking that kind of thing. They get called racist by this group over here because it's like, oh, you don't want immigrants in there. But the people who are claiming in that case to, love all the immigrants coming in, when there are then these massively dark, dystopian, black market realities that happen that literally kill some of those immigrants or other things that are on an equal playing field with that, well, that we just don't want to see. And there's that's the cognitive dissonance you're talking about at the highest level.
They're racist. They're making race-based judgments. Like they're taking two examples of the same behavior and saying we're gonna ignore this behavior because of these people's race, nationality, ethnicity, and we're gonna focus on this behavior. A great example of it. There's a guy named Lucas Sirois in Maine who, at the same time Chinese organized crime's taking off in Maine, he was trying to build a legit marijuana business, and he had gone to the Office of Cannabis Policy and was trying to get registered. And it was a confusing time because the legislation had just rolled out, and people who knew how to grow marijuana were trying to figure out how to do it legally, how to run big businesses. He had some money and some capital and was trying to create a space where multiple people could come in with marijuana licenses and grow in the same space. And an ex-employee who was, angry at him for being fired. There he is. The ex-employee goes to OCP and says, "Oh, this Lucas guy's doing all kinds of bad stuff," and instantly they're on the phone with DEA, and they get a federal investigation, and they're after this guy. They tap his phones. They listen to his conversations with his dad, and his dad grows Christmas trees, but they
code word.
No. Well, I mean, they didn't even.
That's how they took it.
They didn't even say it was a code word for marijuana. They clipped it in the indictment so that they were to say that they were talking about growing pot plants. I mean, they railroaded this guy so hard, and at the exact same time that this was happening, while they're tapping his phone lines, you have a company called Green Future LLC that was a host of Chinese guys, primarily from the New York area, but also from the Massachusetts area, who'd come up with a ton of money and started buying up property in the Lewiston, Auburn area, and eventually they would go beyond that, and they were doing whatever they wanted to. They would cut. They got, some of them got licenses, but for the most part, they just did whatever they wanted to. And the state police were called to their locations multiple times for hostage situations, missing persons, firearms offenses. And the state police would show up, and they can't speak to any of the people there because they all speak only Mandarin. And they're like, well, whatever. This is just a civil dispute. They wipe their hands and leave. And we actually got a police incident report responding to one of the houses, it's like an airport hangar, run by Green Future LLC. And the police, after leaving, say, we suspect it's controlled by Chinese gangs from New York, just as a throwaway line. And they're never investigated again. No one's arrested. No one digs like deeper into that. But so you have a case where we got one set of laws, the Office of Cannabis Policy, our adult use marijuana program, our medical program. Green Futures LLC comes in from New York with guys who don't speak English, and they just do whatever they want, break every rule, try to make as much money as possible, generate a little bit of law enforcement attention. No one cares. We're not going to investigate these guys. No one calls the DEA. No one calls the FBI. No one calls immigration. Pay no attention to these people. But Lucas Sirois, an ex-employee says that he was breaking the rules. So let's wiretap his phones. And he's still has a pending case that he's still fighting.
That's insane.
Yeah, the U.S. attorney still has charges against
even
him.
after all this.
Yeah. I've told him you should go to the Maine Human Rights Commission and sue for discriminatory treatment. It's like, how can they ignore this massive, like 200? The initial memo said 270 properties. We're probably closer to 500 or 1,000
in Maine.
In Maine,
this is not that big a place.
Well, it's big geographic wise, but in terms
like
of people,
population,
just 1.4 million,
right?
Yeah.
And they got maybe 500 properties with probably hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But that's happening, and it is just it's one unified conspiracy. It's not a phenomenon where people have just figured out they can make money coming up to Maine and getting into the marijuana business. They have unified supply chains and logistics, and an operation that stretches all the way back to China. I mean, they're bringing people here from Southeast China and smuggling them. At least they were smuggling them in through Mexico. And there's also plenty of evidence that they're using the open Canadian border as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Where, do you know specifically where?
Yes. There was an arrest. I think this was Fort Fairfield.
Fairfield.
There was a case where there were illegal aliens from China who were arrested after just walking across the border and jumping in a car with a getaway driver. We have a story up there somewhere. It's like Chinese nationals arrested near Maine-Canada border.
Yeah, there it is.
Fort Fairfield.
Where's that in my Canada map?
Forgive me. Yeah, so if you're looking at like Maine, it's like right here. So you're looking at northeast.
Okay, so right near.
Yeah,
got it.
The northeast Maine-Canada border is wide open.
Yeah,
like I know of areas where you can just walk across, and we've seen a lot of cases and heard about a lot of cases of illegal aliens just walking across the border, and they get in a vehicle with a getaway driver. And we've heard about the few where they get caught because they have a broken taillight, and some 20-year-old cop from Fort Fairfield, Maine pulls them over and then just sees like, what are these Jordanians doing in Fort Fairfield, Maine? It's 1 a.m. What's that stack of cash back there? That's weird. And then those guys got caught. But how many aren't?
Yeah.
And there's actually this, I don't know if it was this specific case, the one we just referenced in Fort Fairfield, but there was another one I heard about where there's a similar incidence of Chinese guys just walking across the border from Canada, and they later get pulled over, and the driver had his phone still on the dash with his Google Maps route in it, and it was still saved from New York or Massachusetts. I think it was Boston, but you could see how he'd driven up from Massachusetts and gone to ding, 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 all these different locations in Maine, and then up to the border.
Totally like he knew what he was doing almost.
We should probably save that, or at least someone told him where to go.
Have you ever seen my friend Kat Schultz's reporting at all?
Name sounds familiar.
You've probably seen her around. She's young, but she's like on the ground in Mexico, has been like reporting on the cartels, but she's originally from Canada.
Okay.
So then she started, naturally she's going to track stories back to where she's from as well, cares a lot about that. She was talking, and she wasn't the only one, but she's talking about how easy the cartel lines were going in just with like the fentanyl stuff and the things that we've talked about before into Canada and setting up literal plants there. And she got laughed out of the place like a year ago talking about that. And then 6 months later, it's like, oh, yep, we found some. And, that's another thing. She's like, obviously, we talk about the Mexico border all the time, righteously so. But you got a whole thousands of fucking miles border with Canada up there. And if you don't think different groups like this, in your case, you're referring more towards the Triads and stuff like that. But any surreptitious group that wants to do something bad on either side of those borders isn't using that. You're fucking crazy.
Anybody who doesn't want to check in at the border.
Yep.
I mean, we have normalized relationships with Canada. Anyone
for
coming
now.
in, for now, right? Governor Trudeau. anyone who wants to cross for legitimate reasons, just you go through a port of entry. I cross into Canada all the time, and it's as simple as paying a toll. It's like crossing from New York to New Jersey. It's easy.
You just take a passport.
Yeah,
and
you
good?
just stop there. The guy looks at your passport and he's like, "Thank you, sorry."
Wow.
But anyone who is walking across the border or trying to skirt your points of entry, they're doing so for a reason.
Yes.
And it's not a good one. There's no innocent reasons for just walking across the border to get into a getaway car.
That's
no
right.
innocent reasons for crossing between ports of entry.
There's not.
And you're right that the Maine-Canada border hasn't gotten enough attention. I think that's changing. I think that with the crackdown on the southern border, like customers, there's still demand for drugs, guns, and human trafficking victims in America, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's just going to be rerouted through the Canadian border.
Yes.
It's like, trying to squeeze a balloon. The pressure is going to go somewhere. And so as the Mexican border is harder for it to come through, it's going to come through the Canadian border, through marine ports of entry. It's the other thing people don't think about with Maine is our coastline with all the inlets is longer than California's. And on the eastern...
Wait, really?
Yeah, if you count all the, the sounds and bays and the little innies and outies, it's longer than California's. And Border Patrol has their area of enforcement is from the border 100 miles in. It's basically the entire populated state of Maine.
Mm-hmm.
You go from the Canadian border 100 miles in, but also from the marine border 100 miles in.
Right.
That's their enforcement territory. And you've got just a handful of agents in Maine that are supposed to enforce that entire thing. Like we've got
a handful?
There's a handful. We have the Holton border sector, which is up on like the right, the right corner of Maine, if you're looking at a map, and there's a station there and they have the sector, but then there are agents stationed in different places throughout the state of Maine where if there's anything that falls within the domain of CBP that they can get to in an hour drive, that's their territory. And they're like wolves, man. They don't have overlapping territory. It's very sparse. But I've actually gone out in Border Patrol boats just doing ride-alongs with some of these guys, and it's thinly covered. And I haven't personally, seen or encountered this out in Washington County, Maine, but I've heard a lot of stories about smuggling with boats and, the like urchin divers hollowing out their oxygen tanks so that they can stuff heroin in it. And in the early days, it was like they'd bring it up from New Jersey, actually. They'd bring it up.
Sounds about right.
They'd take an urchin boat from down East Maine, and it's like I don't know, it's some crazy length of a trip. It's like 15 hours boat ride down, and put the heroin in those tanks and upright the tanks, and no one ever searches the tanks. No one ever looks twice. Of course, he's an urchin diver. Why wouldn't he have a bunch of oxygen tanks on his boat? And that was how heroin was getting into down East Maine for a long time. Huge quantities of heroin. But obviously the fentanyl came in, it was like prescription opioids, then the heroin, and then the fentanyl. And now we're coming away from the fentanyl a little bit, but.
And you're finding some other dark shit that we're going to talk about.
Yes. More dark shit. But anyways, that was just to say the marine smuggling is also a big issue, especially on the human trafficking side.
Yeah. The human trafficking, let's put a pin in that because there's a lot there. And like I said, there's like 10 different things we can go to right there. But just from the start so that people understand you if they haven't seen you, like on Sean's show and some of the other shows you've done, like how did you even get into reporting on this stuff? I mean, you were working at Barstool Sports like 3 years ago. What happened to get you to report on international Chinese drug smuggling rings?
It's a good question. Where did things go wrong? Well, I was the producer on the Kirk Minahan show for Barstool Sports, and I was his producer for his comedy show. But Kirk, I think this was near the end of 2021, decided that he wanted to do a cold case podcast and asked me if I wanted to be the producer for that as well. And I was like, yeah, of course. And so we started looking into the disappearance of a 15-year-old girl named Jennifer Fay, who went missing in Brockton, Massachusetts in 1989. And I kind of got a taste of investigative journalism by following Kirk around and kind of seeing how you would make a eight episode cold case podcast. And this particular case ended up being more than just, we're going to pull up the Wikipedia page and we're going to read about, this, dusty old case, because that wasn't Kirk style. He wanted to go like do actual news. Like his model of success for that podcast was, we're going to find the body, we're going to find the murderer, and we're going to get him locked up. Like we're not just like doing a podcast to entertain people. Like we're out here trying to solve a crime. And so that led to us, we got a lead on this creepy guy who was doing coke with Jennifer the night she went missing, was probably the last one to see her alive, probably killed her. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but probably.
Allegedly.
Allegedly probably killed her.
Allegedly.
Definitely,
we don't know.
Definitely. Was charged. Multiple murders. But so we ended up chasing this guy around South Carolina in the middle of COVID restrictions. It was crazy to go from Massachusetts where everyone's like masked up and stay away from me. And we're down in like outside of Clemson.
They're like spit and chew out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, teeth. There's some people are smoking so much meth down there. That's what Kirk always asked. He was like, if one of these guys got COVID, how would they know? Which was a legitimate question. But so like running around doing that, believe it or not, was a fun experience. It was rewarding to do a long form podcast because I'd been used to talk radio or daily podcast episodes where it's like, it's more topical. It's not like we're going to put a lot of time into this 1 hour of content or 8 hours of content. And we're going to release these episodes. So I really enjoyed that. And so I was kind of burnt out after that, ended up getting a camper van, driving around with my wife just for a year, just traveling the country. Trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, and settled on starting a media outlet in the state of Maine. Maine's like a blue purple state, and it's got a media that's pretty much just dominated by progressives, kind of liberals who don't even know that they're liberals. Really, they don't know that they're like in this, that they're reporting on things and writing about things in a way that just like doesn't appeal to half of the state and doesn't align with what the half of the state is interested in terms of values. Okay. It's kind of bifurcated in that.
More commentary rather than journalism, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean that's
journalism.
Yes, yeah. Or they think it's just like they're writing about something. It's a conversation amongst people on the left as opposed to of the entire state, or something that's true investigative journalism. They think their job is to like republish statements from the government, or referee a fight between Republicans and Democrats, as opposed to finding out what's actually going on, or finding things that the government doesn't want you to know about. So we wanted to shake things up a little bit. And yes, I mean, I'm conservative. I wasn't going to like pretend to be neutral down the middle. So we are the conservative outlet in the state of Maine, but we really started as a digital media startup. And we use some of the things that I learned at Barstool, some of the, new media platforms, new media techniques to create an outlet that embraced video, storytelling, multimedia, a kind of brash, not trying to be like stuffy and have, an issue that went out in the morning. And when the first story about the Chinese organized crime in Maine broke, I was like, oh man, we got to dig into this.
Yeah.
Like, this is sensational. Like, there's an organized crime ring with 270 locations in Maine. Like, we got to find out if this is true or not. And we got to go find these places, and we got to talk to these people, and we got to figure out who owns these properties. And we got to dig into this. Like, what's
you weren't
the
a little
here?
Bit afraid?
No, not at first. No, not at first. Definitely went through like a period of immense fear, but then kind of came out the other end of that. But at first I was like, geez, I don't know. Are there powerful people leaking this story just to get us angry at China so that people will support a defense budget? Or, are people playing games here? What's the truth here? So that's what we set out to figure out, is if there's any substance to this claim from a anonymously leaked CBP memo that there's 270 Chinese marijuana grows in Maine controlled by Chinese organized crime, and they're using the profit from that to subsidize fentanyl trafficking and human trafficking and all
not
kinds
a big
of other
story.
activities.
Just let it go.
The other outlets all of the other outlets made that decision. I guess they saw it and they were like, huh. That's interesting. Nothing to see here, folks.
You know what the problem is, Steve? They're looking at it thinking, all right, well, eventually, if we're going to do a big story, we want it to go to Hollywood. And they look at Hollywood and they go, oh wait, we got to be able to sell it to China. I guess we can't cover the China story.
I don't even think they're thinking that far. I think you give them,
but it's kind of funny.
It's true. You're giving them maybe
everywhere.
a little bit too much credit. I don't think these guys have ever thought about ever producing a movie or some more interesting product. But I'll show you a funny text message. So this this is with a individual who was described to me as a former organ harvester for the CCP. He told people in Maine that was his line of work back in China, was harvesting people's organs.
And it's not here now?
No. He's in the marijuana business.
Is he an illegal immigrant too?
Well, he's in one of those gray areas where he may have a green card, but I think he's an illegal immigrant, but he's been here for a long time. But he was part of this Green Futures LLC that I was talking to you about earlier. These guys who came in here. And
was that off camera or on? I can't remember.
It was on camera.
It was on. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So
we've talked for hours here.
This is the same. So this is a buddy of Johnny Woo's at Green Future LLC.
The guy on the
Yeah.
text.
So I got his phone number and I called him and he didn't speak very good English and told me to text him, and I was trying to flip him. So I was like, man, Netflix would love it if I could get somebody from the inside of the Chinese organized crime to flip and become part of my documentary. So I was texting him like,
can I read this?
Like movie deal, $sign. I thought the dollar. Yeah, go ahead. I thought the $sign was like the international language of peace and prosperity. This is my genius pitch to the former organ harvester of the CCP.
For the people out there, there's a lot of blue and not a lot of gray on this text chain, if you know what I mean. Says, hi, Jason. Thanks for talking with me just now. I'm making a documentary movie about marijuana growing in Maine. I want to see how long. Okay, so you're firing these off in 3 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Eddie and Matt told me that you used to have business in Maine, but you don't have businesses in Maine anymore. I was hoping to interview you about your experience in Maine. I can conceal your identity. I can keep you anonymous. I can make sure no one ever knows we talked. If you helped me with the movie, then there might be some money to be made. If you have good information to share, then we could partner to make the movie and make $. And then you send him a text 2 hours later. There is money to be made in telling your story. Maybe big money. Ask Eddie.
Just naked.
I'll give him this. He didn't bite.
No, he didn't. I will
give him that.
He's a principled organ harvester.
I guess he is.
For sure. He's got that omerta. Yeah.
But so he was an organ harvester in China.
That's what he said. He said that. I don't know why you would say that if it wasn't true.
It's pretty dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It's a huge, huge help. Thank you.
It is, yeah, but he wasn't trying to scare people, Like I can conceive of it if you're trying to scare somebody into complying with you or not wronging you. Yeah, right. But no, this guy was like trying to befriend locals because he needed them to help with his electricity.
And that's how he befriended them? Oh, I was your resident organ harvester in China.
Yeah, the guy who told me this story said that he was like, oh, well, how does that work? And Jason went, which is true. I don't know if you've looked into the organ harvesting in China, but they do organs on demand.
He just does this openly.
Yeah.
Oh, you kill and then you take.
Very, very casual. I guess his specialty was kidneys.
Oh my God. My friend Remy Adeleke did an amazing short film that really needs to be developed into a full film called The Unexpected, I want to say. This was 3-4 years ago. Remy was a Navy SEAL for a lot of years, and since then has done a lot of work in different trafficking stuff around the world. Mm-hmm. In addition to being an actor in Hollywood, he's a very talented writer as well. But he wrote and directed this film where it shows in reversed order an organ harvesting. So it starts in some hospital in Mexico with a rich American couple having a doctor come out and say, your son's going to live. And they're like, oh, thank fucking God. And then it works its way.
I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, man.
Dude, it works its way all the way to where the source was from the organ all the way back.
Some Falun Gong practitioner.
Dude, it wasn't, in this case, what he chose to portray was a victim of during like the ISIS period, the Yazidis. Mm-hmm. So it was coming from that, but it works the same exact way.
Any marginalized communities, especially if they don't drink alcohol,
Oh, right, because their organs are good.
Exactly. That's why they like the Falun Gong practitioners. But there's hospitals. I think the Epic Media actually did this, or Epic News called hospitals in China looking to arrange organ transplants and asking specifically for organs from people who haven't drank alcohol. They're like, "Oh yeah, we got those. Yep, come on over. Like, when do you want to do it? Yep. Oh no, don't worry about the timing. We'll have one for you."
Oh my god. So you
don't worry about blood type. We'll match it.
Who put you in touch with Jason again? That guy from the text?
So this guy was actually a licensed, attempted to be a licensed marijuana grower.
Okay.
So he had some footprints, some contact information that I was able to find.
American guy.
No. What do you mean? No,
who attempted to be legal, or was it another Chinese guy?
This guy's a Chinese guy. No,
right, that guy's Chinese.
He actually got a license to grow marijuana legally in the medical program. It only lasted a couple of months because he just wasn't following any of the rules. And you can later see in other disciplinary reports from the Office of Cannabis Policy where everybody in the orbit of Green Futures LLC and like all of these people, the principals and their assistants, everybody, they're just totally flouting the rules, growing as many plants as they want, doing whatever they want. So you can see kind of the history and development of Chinese organized crime in Maine as they initially come in, they try to get permits or try to do things with a veneer of legality. And then eventually they just go full scale, screw the program. Like, let's just grow out in the woods of Maine. No one's going to care. We're not going to get caught. And so they found this little corner where they could proliferate because they were right. No one cared.
A corner, like that area
of the state, like a market niche.
Yeah, yeah,
you know, they could, if they were buying up these houses in rural Maine and not ever attempting to get a permit, then they're never going to find a cannabis office inspector. Like the director of the Office of Cannabis Policy actually told me when I was at the beginning of this adventure reporting on Chinese organized crime, I asked him, I was like, so what are you doing about these guys? Like, what is this? And he said, if they're purely illegal, we don't have any jurisdiction over them. And then if you were to ask law enforcement about it, they would say, well, anything marijuana related, that's the Office of Cannabis Policy. So when I say they found a corner, they found this kind of gap in jurisdictions and in, I guess, American perception, where it was just this blind spot. Like, you're out in a house, no one sees you. You're at the end of a long dirt road. You're not really interacting with people that much, except for at a few key points. So they found a blind spot to be in that was incredibly profitable for them. And they just kept dumping the money that they were making back into real estate. And that's how they were able from 2020, when it really all started, to now to amass, I mean, provably more than 300 properties. I would estimate more than 500, because not all of the properties that they have are chicken barns with 5,000 marijuana plants and some slaves.
Yeah.
Some of them are like logistics hubs. You know, there's some places they own in the more populated southern part of the state that are more cash houses. And you also, I mean, you can include the Chinese restaurants in that property list for sure.
Oh, they're using them as like trap houses for the cash.
Yeah, they're all tied. They're all connected.
The restaurants.
Yeah, they're all connected. And I think that most of the restaurants were in Maine and set up prior to the development of the cannabis activities. But whether it was just a nation of origin similarity, linguistic similarities, you know, friend of a friend type thing, they got connected to the restaurants. And there's one we've reported on that was the burglarized. The owners, their home was burglarized, and they lost $70,000 cash. And this is actually an interesting story because
please expand on this.
So they get robbed. They call the police a week later. It's kind of weird. You wouldn't call the police right after.
Yeah, I would have called them right away.
Yeah, if
I'm in legitimate business.
Yeah. So the police show up. This is in Brewer, Maine. Police show up, and there's one guy there, younger, who speaks English, and there's several older people there who don't speak English. And while the police are interviewing the guy who speaks English, they can tell he's being cagey. You know, he says he's lost $70,000 and he wants it back. Maybe it's because they're trying to file an insurance claim or something, and they just want the police report. But they're kind of getting hints that he knows more than he does and won't tell him because he's maybe scared of the people who did this to him. They don't know. But while they're interviewing this guy, The other people are just talking the whole time in Mandarin or Cantonese. They're just, whole nother conversations happening over here while they're interviewing this guy in English. And they didn't think that the pale faces understood what they were saying, but the white cops had body cams that were recording audio. So a detective at the police department sent the audio off to have it translated. And while this guy was giving the official report of who robbed him, there's a whole other story going on in Mandarin. And they're talking about all these other Asian business owners who'd been robbed in the area and how there's this like string of unreported robberies targeting the homes of people who own Chinese food restaurants. That's weird. And
yeah, I'll say.
You start to look a little bit deeper at it, and Nespin, which is like a law enforcement intelligence sharing network that New England law enforcement has. There's a lot of reports about burglaries targeting Asian business owners that are super sophisticated in that they have like cellular hotspots connected to surveillance cameras that are camouflaged with like camo duct tape and sat on the tree line looking at your house so that they know when you're home and when you're not home, so that they can go in when you're not home.
Oh my God.
And just, look around for wherever the cash is stashed. But so the cops get to thinking and they're like, oh, hold on a second. There's been like more than 10 robberies in Maine targeting Asian business owners. And you guys are the first ones who have called the cops. Something's not right here. So it's either, someone has figured out how to rip off the Triad for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars and just never have any retribution or make any waves, or that you have like interfamily strife, triad on triad violence, or even scarier, the Hispanic cartel, Central American cartels knocking off triad weed soft targets.
That actually, makes sense.
If it's 70-year-old guys,
it would be funny if it was like
Chinese
fucking
guys.
Vinny and Carmine, like just pulling up to all these places, like got him again.
Yeah, right.
It'd be way less.
Or the wet bandit.
Yeah, but you get now the cartels are involved. It's like, well, what do they know about the business then? Too?
Well, I've also thought about if law enforcement, law enforcement, they're seeing more than they're able to talk about, and then that they're able to go out and prosecute. Like if you got a band of cops together who are like, this pays shit. They haven't increased our salaries in a long time. Why don't we just go get some of this illegal drug money? Like training day stuff,
Oh, a lot of possibilities there. It's just like
it's definitely triads robbing triads.
Yeah. So that was gonna be my next question though, because a lot of people now understand that there is this expectation within the CCP that a Chinese national is called upon to spy or do espionage. If called upon, they're supposed to do it on behalf.
Their national security law.
Right, no matter where they are. So, and like we're saying, it's a literal law. That relationship then with the literal organized crime organizations is the same then, no? So like the Chinese government doesn't view the triads as scumbags. They view them as a useful tool.
Yeah.
Fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's a fair and accurate. And look, I'm not a Chinese politics expert, but I do know what we've seen in Maine and the development of it. Our Chinese drug cartel situation in Maine, you can kind of track how it increased in complexity as well as size, and the nature of the people who were populating some of these sites changed over time. In the beginning, it really seemed like you had just a couple of wildcatters who came up and were kind of bumbling around, trying to figure out what are the rules, what are the limits, how are we going to have to operate profitably in this business, in this region? And they figured it out. It took them like a year and a half, but they figured it out. Another example is Mervyn Yan. You familiar with that name at all? He was he worked for CEFC Energy, the firm that paid the Biden family $1.5 million.
Michael Yan, not Mervyn Yan.
So this is Mervyn Yan.
Totally different guy.
Totally different guy.
All right, please.
Mervyn Yan. He worked for CEFC Energy, which is just a Chinese cutout. It's I don't know if it's a real company or not, but it's the way I recognized the name was that he had been interviewed by the House Oversight Committee for his role in paying the Biden family $1.5 million. So it was like, oh, okay, this is part of Hunter Biden's bag, printing money from foreign sources. But Mervyn Yon, of all people, paid a woman in Stacyville, Maine, $100,000 to be the signatory on an adult use marijuana grow. You should look up Stacyville, Maine, so you can just see how remote this place is.
Stacey?
You got it.
Okay.
Yeah, Stacyville, Maine. And just zoom out so you can see how remote this place is. This is in the middle of nowhere. This is a town of 500 people.
This is where you write a horror movie.
But there was an old industrial site there that was right on the train tracks. So this is super deep. Remote. Super remote. I mean, this is
and there's a lake back there. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, this is a lot of water. Yeah.
So Mervyn Yon, while he's, in between paying Hunter Biden and James Biden for Lord knows what, good advice on energy, I guess. Listen, maybe Hunter's got some great advice.
The best advice.
The best advice on energy.
That's our next president you're talking about. Right. President Hunter Biden.
Oh, man. Well, I don't hate him. Listen, he's the most relatable person in the Biden family.
I want to love something the way he loves crack. That's all I'm going to say.
It was inspired.
It was. Did you see the one with the Oppenheimer music behind it with the imagery and everything? I was ready to go do crack. I was in.
You could see a little addict's glint in his eye. Though. Dude, he was like, geez, if I keep talking about this, I'm gonna have to.
The light is hey, take that sodium bicarbonate and then. Oh my God! Oh, that was so funny.
The only thing he loves more than crack is his dead brother's sister, or former wife, rather.
Oh, yeah. All right, that just got dark.
Botched the joke, but
that got biblical. Okay. Sorry, you were saying Stacyville, though.
Yeah. So Mervyn Yon, in between doing this high level bribery on behalf of a Chinese energy cutout, pays a woman in Stacyville, Maine, $100,000 to come and sign on the dotted line as the principal for Sherman Growth, which was a marijuana company that was going to operate up in Stacyville. At the time, you needed there was a residency requirement. This got struck down in a court case, but there was a residency requirement to operate a marijuana business in Maine. And Mervyn was going to pay this woman to be his Maine resident, paid $100,000.
Random lady.
Yep. Was talked with multiple people, and some people were like, no. And then he found the one who would take $100,000, and she was like, hell yeah.
Sign me up.
Goes down, gets fingerprinted, takes $100,000. And apparently later, at some point, it became clear that he wasn't going to move ahead with the project because this is, again, an example of them coming in and trying to figure out what the rules are. So Mervyn comes in and he goes, tier 4 adult use. That's the biggest grow you can get. It's 20,000 plants. You can increase over time. So there were some of them who just came in and had the money and just said, okay, give me the biggest license and the biggest space you have. I'm going to, make a ton of money doing this. But then what he learned was approval's kind of hard for tier 4. Stacyville's a little remote, as you can see, and eventually he backs away from this. And God bless this woman in Stacyville. She got him to make good on it. She was like, "You're paying me." She's like, "I did my part."
Good for her.
Yeah,
he did. Stand up for yourself.
He did. This is a communist spy with principles. He made good on that debt.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So those were the early stages, 2020 to 2022, kind of where they were trying to figure out exactly how they were going to be able to grow cannabis in Maine. And they embraced the getting permits and this pantomime of compliance, pretending like they were following the rules. And then eventually they learned, no, the most profitable way to do this is just completely off the radar. Nobody's going to bother us. And that's what I kind of came into, was that stage of their development. Now they're swinging back to getting medicinal licenses. So you see the same people and the same properties that are involved with search warrants, busts, that are very obviously in this criminal network, are now getting medicinal licenses.
And it's no problem. They're just applying and they're like, oh, you're under investigation. You can have one.
Well, it's hard to say if they're under investigation. The law isn't written specific to a property. So a new person comes in with a property, yes, they're both, Chinese individuals from the same area of New York. And yes, this property did get raided. And yes, the same person still owns it and is also Chinese and from New York. But you don't know that they're related. It'd be racist. It'd be racist to say that they know each other just because they're all Chinese and from New York. So the Office of Cannabis Policy approves all these licenses. And this, by the way, isn't speculation or just like the conservative Steve Robinson saying this. The John Hudak from the Office of Cannabis Policy has admitted in legislative testimony that they are giving licenses to people they suspect have affiliations with organized crime. Says their hands are tied.
What do you mean their hands are tied?
Their hands are tied.
How are your hands tied? He's in the fucking Triads. Don't give him a license.
That's what he says. Hands are tied. Doesn't have a discretion.
Who's tying him?
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. He never explains. The media doesn't ask him to explain further. Doesn't seem real interested in talking to me.
This is like the Truman Show, bro.
Yeah, it's very, very bizarre. The longer I've looked at the problem of why these guys are allowed to continue to operate, I think I've said before, I told Sean, like, I try to stay away from this idea that all the politicians are crooked and everybody's been bribed.
Oh, they are.
I tend to believe things are more emergent and there's a lot more incompetence, but the idea that they're still operating, given the amount of publicity that we put on, like, I really thought initially I would do like 3 or 4 stories on this topic,
be gone.
Here I am 2 years later, still like, hey, why are we allowing this? This is, just like the environmental destruction that comes from these guys, the human trafficking, tax evasion, just the deterioration of our culture. It's like, why are we allowing this to happen in Maine?
It doesn't, sadly, and I really do mean this, sadly, it doesn't surprise me at all that you've now been reporting on this for years and not even the slightest dent of the people that can actually do something about it has happened.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me now either, that I know what I know. But it's also having gone through this and reported on it and had this conversation about like, well, why is this? That's what people always ask.
Yes.
Like, well, why? If everybody knows it's illegal, if you're literally out in front of these places jumping up and down, with a red clown nose on and taking videos to get people's attention on this stuff, why is it still being allowed to happen? And it's getting harder and harder to not go down if it's being allowed to happen, then the people who are allowing it to happen are benefiting from it.
Yeah.
It's getting harder to avoid that conclusion. And so I think that there are a lot of people, both on the sale end, at these hemp shops and head shops where the triad weed is being sold, who are benefiting from it, but also people in more traditional Maine business or Maine politics, French guys and Irish guys and English guys who are renting property to the Chinese organized crime, or maybe they're real estate agents they like the high sales volume that's all cash.
It's like the scene in The Town when they get through the whole fucking chase, they're all done, everything blew up, and they're moving the cars to the other getaway car, and there's the one cop sitting there and he's looking at him and then he just goes, if you're tied in and, that in that case, that cop just didn't want to be in a shootout and potentially get hurt, just wanted to go about his shift. That might be what these people are doing. Yeah. It might just be like, well, I own some of my real estate. Fuck it. Whatever. It's going to happen anyway. Might as well control it.
Also, if you're like a cop in rural Maine, you might have in the 90s or early 2000s some experience busting marijuana grows, but never dealing with transnational organized crime.
Right.
Like, you're not equipped to.
That's right.
How many law enforcement in Maine do you think speak Mandarin or Cantonese?
Zero.
Zero. They might have like the phone line for a translation service, but maybe. But they're not equipped to deal with sophisticated organized crime of this variety. But we, in the movie that we made, we actually. We found a guy in Albion, Maine, who
is this the one with Tucker you did?
Yes, the documentary that people can watch it at tuckercarlson.com. Shameless plug. But in the documentary, we interviewed a guy who was just like a classic Mainer. He shows up to talk to us, and he's wearing like a camo Trump hat and like a tank top and driving his truck. And we're in front of a Chinese marijuana grow that hadn't been raided, but the individual that he knew to be associated with this grow had been arrested like 100 miles over across the state at a different marijuana grow. And so it was dormant for whatever reason. And so we interviewed him in front of it. And he told us this story of how when he saw this guy setting up shop in his town, he said, "Not in my small town, damn it," which is a fantastic drop, a nice quote from the movie. And he pretended to be the code enforcement officer. So he just like went over to this guy and was like, "This is out of code. This is out of code. This is out of code. You got to get that up to code, or we're gonna have to shut you down." And the guy's like, "Well, he's Chinese. He's from New York. He doesn't know." He's like, "Yeah, okay." Gets the guy's phone number, and then just a few days later, the guy's phone rings. It's a number from New York. It's a woman on the other end of the line with obviously a Chinese accent.
You want me to do it?
Yeah. Let's
hello. Sorry, I'm not trying to get you canceled.
That's all right. I'm uncancelable at this point. So the woman offers to come to a financial arrangement, and the guy says, "Yeah, but you're gonna have to meet me in person." And they're like, "No," and they hang up. So I'm thinking, well, I wonder, is that the only time a code enforcement officer in Maine has been offered a couple $1,000s? You're talking about a job where these people probably make maybe $35,000 a year.
Yeah.
So what's a $10,000 bribe like? There's a police task force in Washington State that works specifically on these illegal indoor residential marijuana grows. And they've estimated that one house, just like a 2,500 square foot house, customized with, every single room is growing marijuana, can generate anywhere from $1 million to $5 million in revenue a month. So if that's what you're looking to do with a house, if you can turn it into a $1 to $5 million a month revenue source,
oh yeah,
what can you afford? What's your bribery budget?
Large.
Yeah.
Haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.